Every family has a day that changes everything. For some, it's a funeral. For others, it's a cancer diagnosis. It could be a divorce, or on the more joyous side, a business sale, or a child asking for help, or perhaps an inheritance no one was prepared for. A phone call in the middle of the night can change everything. There's different events, but the same question still stands. Will this family actually respond as an individual or as an institution? Most families don't realize that they're answering that question until it's too late. But over the last 12 years, I've discovered something. Families don't become institutions during those dire moments. Those moments simply reveal whether they ever became one. Greetings. My name is Mashar Farson. I'm the founder and CEO of Good Stewards. And for the last 12 years, my family and I have been running an experiment, not in the lab, but around the kitchen table, on group calls, at our annual family financial seminars. And the question that we were testing was simple. What would happen if a regular family, not a wealthy family, not from an athlete, from a entertainer or someone famous, but what if a regular family decided to operate like an institution? And I want to tell you what we found because I think it's going to change how you see your own family. So this document here is the family operating system. This is a culmination of what we've worked on over the past 12 years. Each component shows a different thing, and it shows the stages of going from a life moment happening, from an opportunity, meaning a wealth event like a business sale or a wake up call or a challenge, which maybe a matriarch or patriarch has passed on, a big decision. Maybe there are opportunities to take advantage of as a family, or someone simply wants a bigger vision. They want to take advantage of, they believe their family can be more. So from the life moment all the way down to a lasting family institution. And so we're not going to go into granular detail for each one of these, but this is meant to be a high level overview so you can know how we went from a life moment happening to building a lasting family institution. So the first thing that we should talk about are a couple of numbers. 70% of family wealth is gone by the second generation, 90% by the third. Now, when people hear that statistic, some people assume that money was perhaps invested badly, or somebody made the wrong stock investment or had the wrong advisor. Maybe someone blew it on cars and vacations. Sometimes that's true, but that's not really the pattern. The pattern is that the money didn't really fail because all the family members are making money every single day, but it's the coordination. The coordination failed. Grandma had a house, nobody knew where the deed was. An uncle had a business, no one knew exactly how he ran it. There was a life insurance policy, nobody knew it existed until 11 months after the funeral. There were four siblings, three opinions, two lawyers, one property sitting in probate while the family group chat slowly went silent. The wealth didn't disappear, it was scattered. And here's the uncomfortable truth about that statistic. Life is going to interrupt your family. It interrupts every family. Nobody gets a pass. The interruption might be a tragedy. It might be a windfall. It might be a decision that has to be made by Friday. You don't get to choose when or whether your moment comes. You only get to choose what it finds when it arrives. Does it find the 12 individuals scrambling in 12 different directions? Or does it find an institution with an identity, a culture, a leadership structure, and one source of truth that simply absorbs the moment and keeps moving? That's the question that this talk is about. And I want to tell you right now, the answer has almost nothing to do with money. So 14 years ago, I was spending my weekends volunteering at a nonprofit. We taught kids about money, stocks, bonds, compound interest, how wealthy actually worked. And I loved it. There was nothing like watching a 12-year-old's face when they realize that their money can actually make money. I was pouring energy into my community. I was giving back. And then one day it hit me because my next door neighbor, he just got not frustrated, but he was flustered a bit and didn't feel like going with me that morning. And it hit me while I was sitting in the driveway. He was my next door neighbor. And it hit me that I had family members on welfare, not distant relatives. These are people that I heard about, people I love, people whose numbers were in my phone. I was teaching other people's kids about how to build wealth while people in my own family were living in subsidized housing. Now, I want to be careful. This is not a guilt story. I didn't feel ashamed. I felt something more useful than shame. I felt responsible because I felt that in that moment, I saw something I couldn't unsee. The same energy I was investing out there, I could invest right here. And instead of building one lesson at a time, I could build something that compounds. That realization started a 12-year journey. And the first thing that that journey taught me was the concept that I want to plant in your mind tonight: scattered economics. Let me paint a picture because I guarantee you'll recognize it. Your family right now, tonight, probably controls more resources than you think. Add it up. The homes, the 401ks, the little businesses, the land somebody's grandmother left in another state, the insurance policies, the skills, the careers, the credit scores, the relationships, the nurse, the contractor, the accountant, the one cousin who kind of knows everybody. If you put all that on a sheet of paper like we did back in 2014, most families will be shocked at that number. But it's not just one sheet of paper, it's scattered. Each household has their own little island, their own little bank account, maybe not so little, but they have their own bank account. They have their own advisor, their own insurance agent. They have their own struggles and their own secrets. Everyone is paying full retail price for financial services. Everyone is making major decisions alone. Everyone is starting over from scratch. That's scattered economics. In this default setting, no one chooses it. It's just what happens when nobody chooses anything else. Now imagine the opposite. Imagine the same family, the same money, no lottery ticket, no NBA contract, no big movie premiere, but coordinated. One balance sheet, one vault of documents, one set of shared values, one table where decisions get made, one advisor negotiating for 12 households instead of 12 advisors billing each household separately. The same family, the same resources, completely different trajectory. And that's what we call group economics. And here's what I've learned after 12 years. The distance between scattered economics and group economics isn't measured in dollars. It's measured in coordination. Most families don't have a money problem. They have a group economics problem. And so if coordination is the answer, what makes a family finally start coordinating? I've watched this happen over and over in my own family and in the families we work with. It's almost always begins with four life moments, four doors to kind of enter into the same house. The first door is opportunity. This is a wealth event. Maybe someone actually sells a business or comes to a large sum of money. The second one is challenge. A matriarch passes away, as I mentioned. A patriarchs get a diagnosis. Siblings ended up disputing over a property, and all of a sudden, those same people who shared a property and had shared a childhood bedroom together, they're not speaking. Sometimes the challenge doesn't even happen to you. You watch it as your cousin's family. You watch a funeral turn into a fight, and sometimes it's something in you that says "never us." Pain itself is a powerful, powerful organizer. I wish it wasn't really the most common door, but it typically is. The next door is decision. An entrepreneur in the family stands up at the cookout and says, I'm raising money for my opportunity. And before I go to strangers, I want to give an opportunity to my own people first. And everybody suddenly realizes we've never done this before. We don't really have a way to do this. There's no process. There's no structure. Just vibes and Venmos and Cash Apps and Zelles and Apple Pays. That moment when a real decision needs to be made and a real process doesn't exist, it wakes a lot of families up. The fourth door, and this is actually the path that I went through when I started our family institution. It's no crisis, it's no windfall, it's no pitch. Just somebody who reads all about the Rockefellers, who study how certain families move through generations, they move through years, and just thought, why not us? So I walked through that the day after the time at the nonprofit, and when you think about the four different doors: opportunity, challenge, decision, and vision, all four force the family to really answer the same question. Are we going to keep acting like a collective of individuals, or are we actually going to become an institution? And here's what I found. In every family that has ever answered that question well, it begins really with a one person. So one person decides, and then the family runs on purpose. So I want to slow down here because this is one of the most important parts of the entire talk. Every family institution in history began with one person making a decision that the family was going to run on purpose. Not the whole family, not a committee, not a unanimous vote at Thanksgiving, one person. And here's what's fascinating about that person. In 12 years, I've never seen it to be who you expect. Think about myself. I wasn't the wealthiest person in my family, right? The wealthiest person is usually busy protecting what they have. I wasn't the oldest, no, nor the youngest, right? The elders carry the history, but they rarely carry the spreadsheet. I'm definitely not the loudest. It's the one, and I'm not the one with the finance degree. I actually majored in physics. It's not necessarily the successful one everybody brags about in church. It's simply the person that is willing to coordinate. The one who says, I'll make the group chat, I'll schedule the call, I'll ask grandma where the deed is, I'll be the one who brings it up. The money conversation that everybody's been avoiding for 20 years. I'll go first. We typically call that person the family steward. I was a steward in my family. I want to be honest about what it looked like because I think the image in your head is wrong. Again, I wasn't the richest family. I wasn't, I had several members that are wealthier still than me. I didn't have the title per se. Nobody necessarily anointed me. Again, I'm not the oldest in the family. I'm not the youngest. I'm just kind of in the middle. And as soon as I made this decision to say, hey, I think we should organize and to this idea of a family institution, the first person I called was my uncle. And it's funny because during a big event, my uncle, he was building his empire, I remember. And I didn't know kind of to what extent he was building. I remember him, he used to cut my grass. And he'd come by and he'd come on this riding motor, and I just say hello every time. But eventually I started seeing him less and less and less. And it turns out during that time period, he was buying real estate. And we were at a big event, and he just told me, he said, hey, Mashar, whenever you're ready, I can show you how to, buy real estate with your credit card. He would just give me some game. And I was like, oh man, that sounds great. And I don't know, something in me just said, hey, maybe I should reach out to Uncle Joe and see if it makes sense for him and I to connect and talk about this idea, because think about the tranches of the family. So my father was his brother, or is his brother, but they each had, eight different siblings. So it was a whole different side of the family, which I was close to my aunts and uncles, but not as close as their brother and sister, right? So I was thinking about how do we get that part of the family involved. And so when I called him, I said, I've been doing this nonprofit for, 6 months, 9 months. And, I just realized that we still have family members in our own family that need help. And I'd love for us to do something together. And what that ended up being, what it turned into the first financial seminar that we actually held at my grandma's house. And so back to the presentation, but what I learned about that is that being the steward is that the first job is not managing money. It's earning trust. And also convincing your second person to hop on the board with you, because your family just won't hand you their financial lives on day one. They shouldn't. Trust is really built in small deposits, showing up on time for the monthly call, keeping a confidence when a cousin share, like, well, keeping in confidence, like keeping a secret, keeping something confidential when a cousin shares something vulnerable, being trustworthy with $50 or $5,000 or $50,000 before anyone trusts you with 500,000 or a million. Now I want you to sit with something for a second. You've been listening to me describe this person for 2 minutes. The ones who's willing to coordinate, the one who asks the questions that nobody asked, the one who sees the scattered pieces and can't stop thinking about what they'd actually look like assembled. You already know who that person is in your family, don't you? Some of you are thinking about a name right now, and some of you are realizing there's no name to think of because it's you. It's been you for years. You just didn't have a word for it. If that's you, if you're the one who's been carrying this quietly, I want you to hear this clearly. You're not crazy. You're not overstepping. You're not obsessed with money. You're the steward. And everything I'm about to share in this map that we drew, it's really meant so you don't have to spend 12 years drawing your own. Ideally, you can get to your goal in 90 days. And that's the thing that we're figuring out and that we found out. So when I stepped up as my family steward, I thought the work would primarily be financial, right? We pick investments, we open accounts, we build spreadsheets. I was wrong. The work was split into three different tracks: identity, culture, and then leadership. And only one of those three after all these were actually done, then, and we were fully aligned, then the actual money piece actually came into play. So, identity, my bad, identity. The question here and the thoughts here are, they sound very simple, but it's really not. Like, what does your family believe? Not what your family does, not who's in it, not what your last name is, but what does it actually stand for, your family? If your family were a company, what would be on the wall in the lobby? Most families have never really taken time to answer that question. They have inside jokes and grudges and an old potato salad recipe, which is phenomenal. I'm not knocking any of that. That's real culture, but that's not a stated identity. There's nothing written down. There's no family crest. There's nothing that the next generation can pick up and read. Around year 8, and I'll tell you, it should have been day 1, not year 8. And that's again why I'm here, right? So you can skip time and get get there a little faster than than we got, right? But we sat down, and during that family financial seminar, we actually launched the G.A. Davis Financial Standard. So G.A. Davis stands for our great great grandmother and great great grandfather, and it fits in there, G.A. Davis. And so but initially, so my last name is Frierson, and so Frierson married a Davis, and then her dad was where the G.A. Davis, her dad and mom came in where the G.A. Davis came in. And so the Frierson family was a weaker kind of family. We had less members than the Davis family. So we decided to boil everything up and go into the Davis side of things. And so when we first started, we made that change because we actually, as I was building it, one of my cousins, older cousins, she actually wrote a memoir about our family. And I learned that George and Annie Davis, that they actually met before. This is back in, 1800s, 1900s. They met as a family, and they would meet about family business. They would discuss everything that's going on, anybody that needed any help. They had ideas like a kitty, right? So if somebody needed some rent money or something, They would, replenish the kitty and help out. So they had a family structure. I mean, this is unbeknownst to me. I wasn't there. I didn't know. But this is one of my cousins. She did, and she's my older cousin. She did a genealogy and did a lot of interviews and wrote a book that was very, very compelling. But I learned that about them, and they just, they had a big family, and they really, really instilled in us that, hey, we need to stay and stick together and be a big family. But from all that, we drafted a vision. It was one sentence. The idea for us was that within a decade, every household that participated in the family office would be financially free. Not rich, but free. And we defined it precisely. We mapped out every single participating household monthly expenses, their assets, their liabilities. And freedom means that, in my world, in our world, means that the assets that we own collectively as a family cover the expenses. Now we've formalized this number into a kin number. So I'm sure you've heard of a fire number, but a kin number is a kindred independence number. And this number looks at all of your assets, looks at the return annually or monthly, and the cash flow that comes off of those assets again will be your kin number. So we can talk more deeply about that. But anyways, we like to look at that number often because life definitely changes. We add people to the family institution as well. But everybody knows that number. Everybody knows the North Star. And then we ratified our values, meaning we wrote them down, we signed them. We actually created a family institution. It's an actual document with actual institution, with actual signatures. And I know that sounds like hippy dippy and a little bit off, but a constitution for a family, I know it sounds a bit overkill. But the thing that the document did is that it gave us something to really point our North Star, right? To be our North Star. Because when emotions are high, you don't really argue about each other. You point to the page that you all sign and everything is calm. Institutions begin with identity because identity is the first thing you can transfer. You can't transfer a feeling, but you can transfer a standard. The next thing that we realize is that wealth moves through conversations before it moves through assets. And so here's a truth that nobody wants to say out loud. In most families, money is the one topic that's more forbidden than politics. Your family members that you've known since birth, you don't know their credit score. You don't know if they have a will. You don't know if they are drowning or if they are thriving because everyone performs well at the cookout. And if you can't coordinate what you can't discuss, and you'll never be able to get to that point where your family's aligned. And so for us, it's we created this second path of culture. And for us, it started with our annual family financial seminar. For years, we held it the Saturday after Thanksgiving. Everybody was in town. Everybody was already kind of full. This was right after Black Friday. But since we moved it to mid-December. But we've not missed a year in 12 years. And I want you to picture what it actually looks like because it's not in a boardroom, right? We have some years we've done a game night before, and then we'll do a actual event or seminar the next day. We'll bring in speakers and all that. But sometimes during the game night, and this year we're actually on the game night after, or the game day after, like a field day, because we're holding a kind of like a rec center spot. But we played Cash Flow, which is a rich dad poor dad board game that talks about how you can go from earning an income to financially free. So we bought like 4 of those games, and so all the kids play that. We spouses are included, and we are also including, like I mentioned, guest speakers. One year before we really started fully organizing our institution, We brought in one of the wealthiest members in South Asia, like of that family. That family is the wealthiest member family in South Asia. And we just asked them a couple questions. How do you handle disputes? How do people work inside and out of the business? One gem that I will drop is he mentioned that everyone has to work outside the business for 3 years before they come work for the business, and they own a ton of retail, a ton of manufacturing, a lot of stuff. One thing I'll say is, and most recently, one kind of takeaway from the seminar was my sister on my dad's side. We actually, she's actually been an accountant for the last 30 years, but she mentioned that after one of the seminars that she had wrote a list down of 50 items, goals, right? Travel the world, lose 10 pounds, whatever, right? But one of the goals was that she wanted to be a business owner. And it's funny because I called her and I was talking to Uncle Joe and he was saying, hey, yeah, like, I heard that, your sister is taking over her business, right? And I called her and I said, hey, heard you're taking over the business, your accounting business. And I'm like, hey, let's do something else as well. And she was like, I don't know, I got to go out of town. I said, all right, sister, you didn't wrote this goal down. I said, you don't got one business, but now you got two businesses. And she just laughed. But, you know, the family financial seminar really created a safe space for everybody to feel comfortable because sometimes people would do that in private, right? So, but because what the seminar was really doing underneath the agenda, it was building linkages. Auntie to nephew, even though she is my sister, she's my sister on my dad's side. It's not we wouldn't have anything to talk about other than, hey, hello, how you doing? And like, but now we have an expansive thing to talk about. We can talk for hours, and it's not just me calling her just to say, hey, I'm gonna stop by after Thanksgiving, which that's important. But now we have, much more to talk about. But it increases the household to household communication because when your family knows that you're money literate and trustworthy, then you can hold sensitive information, and that you do that without gossiping, and that you can be trusted with small things. They actually start reaching out as to the family steward. But one thing at a time. It's hey, can I ask you something? And once a couple questions started coming through, and once I was able to give some advice and people started following up, that's when I knew that the culture was working. Not when people showed up to the meeting, it was when people started calling between the meetings. Wealth really moves between and through conversations before it moves to assets. Skip the conversations, and the assets never move at all. So from here, it's all about family leadership because eventually we learn trust needs structure, or trust really before trust gets tested. And so here's the paradox nobody really warns the steward about. Early on, informality works. It's you, a cousin, a shared spreadsheet. Decisions happen on a phone call. But the moment that real money and real people enter the picture, informality becomes dangerous because not every decision is personal. Why did he decide that? Who says she speaks for the family? And the relationships you're trying to protect become the casualties of the structure you never built. Governance sounds cold, but it's actually the warmest thing you can do for your family. Governance protects relationships because it lets people disagree with a decision without attacking a person. So we built family leadership, a constitution rooted in our values, a family board that we call our executive committee, deliberately drawn from all sides of the family: president, vice president, treasurer, chief of staff, and the investment committee that includes every member of age 18 plus that are participating in the family institution because the voice creates buy-in. And then we set voting rules written down in advance. Some decisions are simple majority. Some decisions, like selling a major asset, requires a unanimous decision. And what age can you actually vote and participate? What counts as quorum? boring questions that prevent the fights that destroy families. Now, let me tell you about my favorite proof that this works. A couple years ago, I had a cousin that joined our virtual meetings every single month. She was on screen, contributing, voting, learning. And for 2 years, we built together, but we had never met in person, not once in our lives. She actually lived in a city right outside of Nashville, right outside of my hometown. And a few weeks ago, I actually went back home and I met her face to face. We actually spent some time and I met her, her sister, and a couple of her friends. And, we went from announcing that we had an investment club to a full family office. She didn't just say, "Oh man, that's cool." She actually stepped up and she said, "I want to be on the executive committee." So now she's our chief of staff. And think about what had to be true for that to happen. The structure had to create an actual door. The culture made it safe to walk through it, and the family member I had never physically met became one of the family's leaders. And see, that's what governance allows you to do. It doesn't restrict the family; it reveals it. So three tracks in: identity, culture, leadership. We hit a checkpoint. A simple yes or no. Is the family aligned? If no, you keep talking. You don't force it. You run another seminar. You have another conversation. You rebuild the trust. There's no shortcut through alignment. But if yes, if the identity is written, the culture is safe, the leadership is trusted, then you can carry on and attempt the things most families never do. You can start getting one source of truth. What does our family actually own? You sit with that question. Every property, every policy, every account, every entity, every business, every document. Who holds the deed to that land down south? Where's mom's insurance policy? Who's that beneficiary on the 401k from a job someone left in 2009? Where are the trusts, the tax returns, the passwords, the history? In a scattered family, nobody knows. Not because they're hiding it, because it's never been asked. And there's never been a trustworthy place to put that answer. This is because, and this is why we built something called the digital vault. The vault comes after alignment, not before. People don't just disclose their assets, their plans, their sensitive documents to a family they don't trust. Disclosure isn't a technology problem, it's a trust problem. The trust the trust that you all have between each other, it unlocks the truth. And again, we call this the digital family vault. This is one place for holding all the trusts, all the insurance policies, the tax returns, the family constitution, the estate plans, the meeting minutes, even the legacy letters and old pictures and videos. This is one balance sheet that maps every single entity in the family. And this is why visibility matters so much. Every dollar the family has evaporated typically in probate. Every property that was lost because nobody knew it existed. Every policy went unclaimed, not because it was a market failure, it was a visibility failure. The map is wealth. A family that can see itself can protect itself. That's when we discovered probably the most underrated tool in family wealth, the investment club. Now, when I tell you that my family runs an investment club, they always ask me the same question. What are your returns? Wrong question. Yes, our returns are great. We've invested uh, we've invested all in about 20 to 30,000, and our platform right now has about 65,000 dollars of actual value. But when we first started, members contributed $25 a month. $25 a month over 5 years. And again, we built that into what we built. And the money has doubled and tripled. We've made great investments. We own Nvidia, AT&T. We own Live Nation. We own Apple, Meta, and a couple other stocks. But the returns were really never the point. Because you think $25 per month is not really like a make or break number. We wanted to make it, and I wanted to make it achievable to where anybody can invest. You could be wealthy, you could be on your way, but you didn't have to be rich to invest. And I didn't want to make it a bill. And so every single month, the $25 would buy something more valuable in stock. It buys a reason to show up. It gave us the opportunity to have a monthly meeting, a shared decision, and it gave and opened the door for some of our younger members to actually present a stock pick to her great uncle or to her uncle. It gave a track record that the whole family can point to and say, look at this, we're doing this together, right? Remember my cousin in Nashville, the investment club that she showed up for 2 years that we never had the opportunity to connect? That's what it's for. It's the on ramp. It's the practice field where the family learns to make decisions together with small stakes so that one day it can make decisions together with large ones. You can start embarrassingly small. Just small is the strategy. We started with $25 per month. You can easily do it with $10 a month. And good stewards, we have created an investment brokerage that you can invest together. Once we did that, something happened that redefined what return means for our family. So I want to tell you a member about a member in our family. So when we started this work, and this is skipping ahead to kind of some of our initiatives, but she was on welfare. She had subsidized housing, and she wanted out, not out of the family, but out of the cycle. She wanted to become a nurse, but you can't just attend a certification program when every hour working, or excuse me, when every hour that you're up, you're working to keep the lights on. In a scattered family, here's how that story normally goes. She quietly asks one relative for help, then another. Person A gets tapped, then person B, then resentment builds in the shadows. Nobody really knows who's giving what. And eventually somebody snaps at the cookout and the whole thing collapses in shame and silence. But here's how it went in my family, an organized family. She came to the family office. She wrote down every single bill, every single one of them. Full visibility, the table. There were conditions and commitments. There was real governance. And it was an investment. It wasn't a rescue. Everybody, including her, understood the difference. The family office paid her bills while she trained. And 6 months later, she was a CNA. She had quadrupled her income. And today, she contributes back into the same family office that invested in her. The thing that I'll say is that this taught me was that instead of looking at the return on investment, ROI, we now also have another quantification called return on family or ROF. Return on investment as did the money grow. Return on family as did the person or family member grow. Because at the end of the day, a family office isn't a hedge fund. You're not optimizing from one bottom line. You're running something closer to a that has multiple bottom lines. Profit matters, but so does mobility, upward mobility. So does dignity. So does the messages sent to every single child that's watching. And this family, we invest in each other on purpose, with structure, without shame. One more time, because it matters. It worked because it was governed. Visible, it was visible. We all committed. We were all accountable to one another. And organized love outperformed scattered charity every single time. Only after we did all that was it right to start talking about protection. And this is actually where we are today. Notice where we are in the story. We're deep, and this is not by accident. Most families try to start here. Somebody watches a YouTube about trust and dynasty trust, and they want to skip straight to legal structures. And it fails. It fails every single time because, for one simple reason, legal structure follows relational structure. Trust, like an actual physical estate plan or a trust, follows trusting your family. But once the alignment is real, protection is how you make it permanent. Two layers. First, the household. So a household is a husband, wife, a kid, right? It's somebody that has their own house. They live in one house. Another household can be your cousin and his wife and his son and his daughter. So every person has their own household. Every individual, every person in the family has their own household. And I won't drown you in legal jargon, but it's every household has a trust. And the primary reason is because of privacy. It's because your affairs need to stay out of public probate court. Continuity, because if something happens to you, your assets transfer by instruction instead of by the courtroom. And protection, because what you built is shielded while it moves. The second layer above the household. So it's household is individual, right? Husband, wife, son, or individual and son, or individual by themselves. That's one household. And then above that is family. So family is a collection of all the households. So this is where a dynasty trust comes into play. And it's a different animal. A household trust protects one generation's household, and a dynasty trust is a vessel designed to really carry assets across generations. So it's a multi-generational trust. It's intentionally stored by the family office for children that haven't even been born yet. And where the dynasty trust sits near the end of our framework, why it sits there and not at the beginning, is because nobody pledges assets into a multi-generational vehicle until alignment is fully complete. You cannot paper over and when people you don't trust the person that you're signing, right? Because the agreement that you're signing and agreeing to, you've agreed to that years before by trust and small things and small acts of kindness and that type of thing. So the dynasty trust isn't the foundation of the institution; it's the proof of it. Then the quiet superpower, shared services. When your family operates as an institution, you stop paying retail. One family CPA serving 12 households instead of 12 accountants billing each household. One estate attorney who knows the whole picture, right? Advisors who can negotiate with the family come in. They are offering different pricing and delivering different attention, right? But organizing everything after you've built your estate plan and your trust for each household, you've done your dynasty trust for the family. Now it's shared services, right? And finally, from that, we learned that institutions don't run on documents; they run on rhythms. And so this, again, I know for us, we started with the annual financial summit, but this is something that we find is our annual heartbeat. For every year, for the last 12 years, we've not missed it at all. And picture that one family in one room. The vision is reviewed, the household, review whether or not the households are on track for financial freedom. We celebrate our wins. We talk about any new initiatives that we're launching. Like this year, we're launching our Dynasty Trust initiative, and also predicated by the everyone having a trust initiative, but all that's kind of in one conversation. We invite young individuals, right? Older, more mature individuals, right? And the cool thing about it is that, when a kid or a niece or nephew is 9 years old and they grew up watching their family govern themselves, they don't need to be convinced of anything at 25. To her, this is simply what the family does. The summit is how the institution recruits the next generation without ever recruiting. Because obviously we're having food there, we do like games and make it fun, but this is just something that we do every single year, just like going to church or going up to the country and going to church every fifth Sunday, right? The cookouts, the holidays, everybody at such and such is house for Christmas. We shouldn't replace them. We should just deepen them. They're the same gatherings, the same things, but it's just tighter bonds because now the family plays together, also builds together. And then when it comes to initiative, and I mentioned my story again about one of my family members, right? But every family needs different initiatives, right? My family at that time, we needed an upward mobility initiative, right? That allowed for this one family member. And there's several other family members that we're working through, but that they wanted to reskill. And it wasn't just us; it was them too, right? They came to us and said, "Hey, I'm interested in this," and we kind of coordinated everything. It was a teaming thing, but every family needs different initiatives, right? You may need a credit readiness push, right? Everybody's score reviewed, repaired, optimized. You may need a first home initiative where you want people to now combine and start buying homes. So that may be some education. So maybe you partner with a realtor or a mortgage broker that does first time home buying education. So there's various initiatives that you can pick, but now you're talking about the family flywheel, right? But because all this goes into a lasting family institution. But when you think about the flywheel, every turn makes the next one easier. And a family whose flywheel is turning summit by summit, year by year, doesn't have to hope that it lasts 100 years. It just simply is on pace. So let's go back to where we started. Everybody has that day or that life moment that changes everything, right? I can't tell you exactly what your day will be. A funeral, a diagnosis, a windfall, a phone call in the middle of the night. The event will be different for every single family. But the question will be exactly the same. Will your family respond as individuals or as an institution? And now I know you know the secret. Families don't become institutions during life defining moments. Those moments, again, simply reveal whether they actually are becoming one or they became one. The funeral doesn't scatter the family, it reveals the family was already scattered. The windfall doesn't create a fight, it reveals that the fights were already happening. And when a prepared family meets its defining moment, when the vault is full, the Constitution is signed, the summit is on the calendar, the flywheel is turning, the moment doesn't break them, it proves them. Which brings me to the last thing I'll say, and I'll say it directly to the one person in this room or the one person watching this. You know who you are, and you're the one who's been thinking about this for years. The one who sees the scattered pieces, the one who's been quietly carrying the weight of a question you don't have the words for. You do have the words for it now. You're the steward. You're the family steward. And the decision that starts everything is the same one that started my family institution 12 years ago. It's the one that starts every 100-year institution in history. It's one person deciding that the family is going to run on purpose. One person, one decision. Your family's day is coming, and that part isn't up to you. What it finds when it arrives, that's up to you. If you're ready for your family to see where your family stands today, we built a family institution assessment at goodstewards.io. It's free and it takes a couple minutes. It'll show you exactly where your family sits on the road from scattered to group economics and what your next step is. My family and I are ready to review each one, and I'd be honored to walk this road with you because your family has everything it needs. It's just scattered. Let's go get it. And thank you.